I can't hear anything. Is anything happening?
I'm just prepping it to go live. It's redirecting now.
Okay,
So it's a little
okay,
bit of
thanks. Okay,
Looks like it's showing live now.
a,
Yeah, it does
okay,
appear that we're live right now.
we're set and ready to go.
Great. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency for August 12th, 2020. And start out with privilege of the floor. I believe we have one comment received. I do note that the county meeting, legislature meetings, and the committee meetings, we're going to be able to take comments starting next week live. And if we can get that capability here, I think that would be a really good thing so that people could join and share. I guess we'll know if it works next week, so we could pick that up next month if we're still in Zoom boxes. But there is one comment, I will read it, from Teresa Alt of 206 Eddy Street in the city. I have come to you so often with negative comments that I feel I should come today with a positive one. Esteri by the Vicino Group is exactly the kind of project that deserves its pilot and tax breaks. 217 units of affordable housing located close to where people work. That's exactly what the community needs. Personally, I'm less excited about a parking garage and a conference center, but it's all a package deal, so the rest comes along too. Right? And you said no other comments received. Okay. Are there any additions to the agenda? Additions or changes? Okay. Hearing none. Old business. We have Arrowhead Ventures extension request. And Heather, do you just want to indicate anything about the letter you received?
I do. Wait, I had everything in front of me. Sorry. We received this request for an extension. The village automatically extended for 120 days through the end of November on all of their development projects as a result of COVID. The applicant is requesting that deadline that we had set coterminous with the village's deadline of July 31st be extended as a result of changes as a result of COVID. And I know that there was additional information that the IDA had requested in terms of financial costs. And if we want to talk about those, I would ask that we go into executive session. I have signed an NDA on behalf of the IDA with the applicant for this project.
So they have responded to our request
Hold on.
and provided the information requested?
Yeah, can you raise your hand? Because I saw several people wanting to talk all at the same time. Laura, I think you were up first.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out a clarification in the letter. It looks like in the 4th paragraph, I believe, the extension is requested, a 6-month extension. Completion date of January 31st. I believe that should be 2021.
Yes.
Okay. All right. John, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to know if we had received response to our inquiry. And honestly, I think we should probably spend some time thinking about that before we act on this. Want to do that in executive session?
Yeah, I think we do need to have discussion in executive session.
Yeah.
So is that the sense of the IDA to take this to executive session and then make a decision on the extension? Yes, I'm seeing nodding heads.
Yes.
Okay. So just for clarity for anybody who's watching the live stream, we will go offline at the conclusion of our other business and discuss this in executive session. We may come out and make a decision on the record about the extension. But that leads us to move on to new business. Asteri Ithaca LLC application and benefit memo. Heather, do you want to introduce this? And I think we have a couple visitors prepared to speak to us as well.
Sure. So this is an application for essentially 3 projects that are all bundled together as one. If anyone has been following this, this is a large downtown redevelopment project that includes housing, the conference center, and the rebuild and addition of new parking spaces. I'm going to let Rick Manzardo and his team give a little bit of an overview of the project itself. But what they're essentially asking for is a little bit of a deviation from our standard IDA incentive package. What is standard would be the sales tax and the partial mortgage recording tax abatements. They're also requesting in terms of pilot that we do 3 separate things. The first being a pilot for the affordable housing project, which would be a payment established based on an estimate of 20% of their net operating income in year 1, with an escalator over the term of the affordable housing project, which is, I believe it's 30 years. And that is similar to what we have done with 210 Hancock, as well as the Ithaca Art House project. So that's pretty normal there. And then the other 2 pilots would be essentially a 0 payment for the term of the conference center, the nonprofit entity's lease with Asteri, and then again, a 0 term on a pilot for the term of the lease that the city has to operate the garage. So I will be happy to answer more questions about that and some of the financial review. What we're looking for today is an acceptance of the application, move it on to a public hearing. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Rick and let you give a little bit more of an overview of the project itself.
Heather, thank you. And thanks to everyone for the time today. I'll keep this short. I'm going to hand it over to Bruce. He's more day-to-day with this project, and he can give a better rundown and more succinctly than I could. So I'll kick over to Bruce. Thank you.
Oh, Rick, thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. Some of you may have not seen my face or met me before, but I'm Vice President of Development for the Vecino Group here in Missouri. We do projects all over the country, as you can see behind the map behind me here. And I think, Heather, you gave a great overview of the project. We're currently sitting at 217 units of housing, and I think the summary is all in the board packet that you got there. We also have about a 50,000 square foot conference center on 3 levels of the first 3 floors of the project. And then the upper 9 floors of the mixed use building are the residential. So it's a 12-story building. And again, 4 stories of additional parking on top of the existing garage. The western garage would be removed and torn down. And we're working through the planning board process right now, and we are right at the sort of the crux of our SECRA negative declaration. We're hoping that the meeting later this month, that's what we will achieve, and then we should be able to get our final site plan and design review put together and through the process next month. We do have one, we're going to have then, once we're through the SECRA this month, we're going to be on the September BZA meeting for a couple of variances that we're requesting. One of which is occupation or use of the 10-foot rear yard setback within the property that we're proposing. So the 12-foot access in the east-west direction south of Herald Square would still remain and exist and be available for all the commons area and individuals and pedestrians to walk back and forth. But where the garage currently sits right now today is about where our building would start. It's currently within that 10-foot rear yard setback. So we're asking for that variance, as well as a small height variance for one small portion of the building that's going to needs a little bit taller ceiling on that 12th floor for a community space. So we're in the process of all that and moving through the different departments and issues, and I think everything seems to be going pretty well. We then, from a sustainability standpoint, we've sort of broken the project down into 3 projects, just like it already is. The residential portion, we are engaged with NYSERDA on a tier 2 level performance that provides a 25% over base code energy savings for the project. And so that's for the residential side. For the commercial side, which is the conference center, the first 3 levels, we currently have the project designed somewhere between 15 to 25% below base code energy savings. We have yet to select the tier 1 or tier 2 NYSERDA process. Matter of fact, while we were sitting here, I got a couple of messages from our engineers, Tatum. They're trying to clarify a couple of things for me and how we might operate tier 1 versus tier 2 and how they work together. So we're still in the process of learning that. And then on the garage, there's really no good standard for that, but there is a Park Smart certification that we would be going for. That's it's sort of like LEED, but for parking garages. And so our design team is working through that process on that project. We do meet the energy code supplement for Ithaca through the Easy Path. We've got 6 points generated through a variety of scenarios. If any questions, let me know about that. And then lastly, we have already gone through the Tompkins County BEA program for all 3 projects, had all 3 teams on 3 separate calls and 3 separate meetings to talk through each of the projects independently. So that's a quick summary of where we are and what we're doing. Be happy to answer the questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Jennifer?
Where can I put, oh, there we go. There's a little blue hand. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to state at the outset that I will not be speaking or voting or contributing to this discussion because I have a conflict of interest in that I'm relatively involved with the project. So.
Okay. John?
Thanks.
Yeah, I actually
Thank you, Jim.
I wanted to talk about conflicts for just a second as well. The important one is not that Rick bought me dinner once, but that did happen. Thank you, Rick. Wonderful dinner. Also, as the president of the board of the Downtown Ithaca Alliance, we are involved in the conference center. I don't personally have any stake, but the DIA is very interested in that. And I don't know if that would matter at all.
I think we should get opinion of council on that one because I think you're right to bring it up. So, okay. Anne?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really like this program and especially all the affordable housing and the supported housing for people at risk for homelessness, the 40 units that are going to be looking at designating 40 units for that program. So really excited about this program. So thank you for bringing it to us and for working on it.
I guess I would jump in just to comment that you guys must really like to do complicated. This is quite a project. Certainly it's had quite a narrative through the city approval process and the county, but more of the city. And this is going to be quite a development. I wish you all good luck as this moves forward. Any other questions or comments from the IDA? Anybody
Rich,
else?
this is Martha. Can you hear me?
I can.
Rich?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh,
Yep.
good. I've been in and out of the call. My apologies. I missed everything except for the last 5 minutes, but I've read the materials and of course it's a great project. You may have already mentioned this. You mentioned tax credit approval. Is that the 4% tax credit program?
Yes.
So it's not a question mark. That's, as for an eligible project, you will get those tax credits.
That is correct. Yeah, we've had extensive talks with the state because this is a large project, especially for the upstate region. And it's gone from, all the way up the ladder. It's a large request, but yeah, it's got the full support of the state.
Okay, that's fantastic.
You broke up there, Rick. Rick, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, it is a 4% tax credit project. There is a state subsidy requested with it as well, which is a competitive process. But again, we've been in talks with the state since actually before we submitted the RFP to the city, just to make sure, hey, if we were awarded this, they wanted the project. And from day one, they've pushed us along and said, yes, we completely support this project and have stood behind us thus far. We don't anticipate a change in that.
Okay. Laura,
Yes, I also am really pleased with this project. Very happy to see 217 affordable units being built right in the center of the city. And for the supportive housing component to be in there, I think it's just great. I have a question about the tax credit approval that you anticipate hearing about in the fall. Have you had any initial feedback on that yet? Any questions posed? Anything you've had to clarify?
We haven't, like I said, this has been a project that it's a little bit different. The 4%, you don't get, I hate to say this, you don't get a formal approval until 42M letter, which is about a month before actual closing. Essentially with the 4% projects, you make a presentation. It's essentially in the pipeline for the state for funding, and they kind of slot a timeline where they think they can close this. So my last conversation with the state was probably about 3 weeks ago. We're in the pipeline right now with everything going on at state level. They're trying to shuffle the funding and get everything straightened out. But yeah, this is firmly in the pipeline. And yeah, they've got no issues with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. Anybody else? Okay. Russ, I don't know if you're prepared to offer an opinion on Jennifer and John's question, but we haven't.
Yeah, I don't, can you, everyone hear me?
Mhm.
I don't
Yes.
think these are legal conflicts of interest such that you need to recuse. If there's an optics issue that you would like to protect against, I think that's a good idea. Assuming you have the requisite votes, if there's a motion to be made. So I'm comfortable with you participating. If you are not, I don't think that's a legal conflict.
I think we have the votes to push it on to a public hearing without those two votes. If everybody who's voting is inclined to do so, I certainly support taking this to a public hearing. Jennifer?
Thanks for that, Russ. I think the nature of my involvement has been a bit different than John's. John is at least an extra step removed. And just to be sure you have an understanding, there's no personal conflict. I don't own a business or I have no personal financial interest in this project. But as the chamber president and as the president of the Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which was the grant applicant to receive the grant funding for the conference center portion of the project. And as a potential ongoing funder for the conference center operating structure, I still feel it's best if I don't take any part in voting at the IDA as an IDA board member. I can talk with you in greater length as to all the different ways that I've been involved in the project. But I think it's different. I'm very different from John in this particular situation. So I'm going to continue to recuse myself if that's okay with everybody.
Understood.
Laura?
Yes, I do have one more question. On page 4 of the application, under green building practices, there's a statement, the use of fossil fuels will be eliminated where possible with all electric utilities. And then there's a statement that solar panels on the roof are under consideration to see if these are feasible. Can you say a little bit more about those green building practices?
Sure, I can address that, Laura. On the fossil fuel scenario, we are limiting the use of natural gas to the commercial kitchen that's going to be part of the conference center. So the conference center will have a commercial kitchen involved, And part of that kitchen is going to require natural gas. We've talked internally with the conference center task force team and the equipment suppliers. And there is an opportunity to maybe go all electric on that equipment, but it does create some demand charges from a operational perspective that might be an issue, as well as just purely functionality from people that like to cook. The gas-fired equipment seems to do a lot better for them. So we've chosen at this point to go with the gas-fired kitchen equipment and the requisite gas-fired water heater for the dishwashing. So that's the only sort of fossil fuel in the building as it relates to the whole project. Then on the solar panels, we did go through the BEA process and have considered some options for solar panels. The reality is that our roof area for the project is really not large enough to support anything of any consequence. And so since it's a smaller footprint and we've got some equipment on the roof and lots of other things happening, there really wasn't enough to do any good. At some point, the conference center stakeholder group and the operator could participate in a community solar array if they wanted to and offset some of that. But at this point, the capital project does not have any solar panels in it.
Thank you for those clarifications.
Can I follow up on that? Is that you said the commercial kitchen operations, what about heating and cooling of the whole building?
So heating and cooling the whole building, the conference center component as well as the residential is currently designed to, and this is how we're gaining a lot of energy efficiency, is all electric heat pumps. So these are large tonnage heat pump units on the roof that are modularized so that they can feed different parts of the building, a VRF system as it's known.
Okay, that sounds great. And I would, you might want to mention that. That's a real plus. Thank you very much.
You bet.
And mention that in the application, or at least when you introduce this at the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Everybody ready to vote? So let me call the vote. Actually, we need a motion to accept the application and move it to public hearing. Ann Corman moves, Laura Lewis seconds, and I'll make the rounds if you could answer. So get off of mute when it's your turn. Ann Corman,
Yes.
Laura Lewis,
Yes.
John Guttridge,
I'll abstain.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Jennifer Tavares,
Abstain.
okay, Martha Robertson,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So five yeses, 2 abstentions. Thank you, and thank you to our visitors. We'll take this to public hearing and hear what people have to say. So thanks.
So when will
Right.
that public hearing be?
Next item is that Ina will work with you and members of the IDA to schedule a time that most of us can get
Okay.
there. We try to have as many IDA members as possible attend to hear, but
Okay, thank you very much.
probably, I don't know, Ina, Heather, within the next couple weeks? Maybe 2 weeks?
Probably right that week before, sometime after September 1st, before the next IDA meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Laura?
Yeah, I'd also just like to thank Teresa Alt for submitting a comment on this, a positive comment on this project. Thank you, Teresa.
All right. Next item is the chair's report.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, thank you. We'll move along. I would note that I've received comment from a couple of the people on the screen that they've got time commitments at, is it 4 o'clock?
Mhm.
So we should try to aim to finish by then, is that right? 4? Okay. So chair's report, I would just say that it might help the IDA to have a report perhaps next month on status of projects. There does seem to be a lot going on with projects that the IDA has approved and the Development Corporation, just to see what impacts the economic changes and the COVID changes have made. The certainly, I think there's some positive stuff to talk about with. Oh, I see, Ann, you have to leave as well. With the DOT has responded on the Carpenter Park and the City Harbor projects, and so maybe next month, Heather, we could get a report on just a survey of all the ongoing developments.
Absolutely.
That's, there's lots going on, but I think that's my chair's report. So next up is staff report. Heather?
Rich, it is true. There's a lot going on, lots of projects in the works and moving forward. I would specifically like to report about the adoption of the workforce housing policy. I have had conversations with the city of Ithaca about making their application and first step process match the IDA's process. Their application is a little bit out of sync with some of the things that we require. They have a couple of things in their application, and then of course updating to include the new workforce housing policy that the IDA adopted. They will be going to a committee meeting next week with a memo that has not gone out yet, requesting that the city consider dropping that first phase where you have to submit a CTAP application to the city and hold a public information session and then have it sent to the IDA, recognizing that, the IDA has been somewhat responsive to their requests for changes to that policy, specifically with our construction labor policy and the diversity and inclusion policy. So they think the time might be right to just give that authority to the IDA to manage the CTAP process. I have not come across another IDA in the state that has a two-step process with a municipality. And, it has evolved over the 20 years that we've done this. So that's one of the things that the city is considering. We also had some discussion about the density district when the Common Council had previously approved their recommendations to increase the density district to include the waterfront areas. They did not include the Cherry Street zoning district. We all sort of staff-wise thought that it might make sense since the city has changed the zoning on part of Cherry Street from Cecil Malone towards the inlet for more mixed use and residential housing. That's where the Art House Ithaca project is. There's a couple of other projects. I think there's 11 acres down there that are ripe for redevelopment for mixed use. So I think they will be asking the committee of the Common Council if we should extend that map boundary just to include that portion of Cherry Street. The other portion on the other side of Cecil Malone Drive is still zoned for industrial, and any projects in there would qualify as of right at the IDA for our industrial incentives anyway. So no need to really look at that area. If the Common Council decides that, they still want to be involved with that first step sort of administrative process of the CTAP, then the next step would be that we'll go ahead and just move to make changes to the CTAP application so that it's consistent with the IDAs. So we're moving forward on that, and I hope to have some resolution in the next month or so. That's the housing policy. The Labor Committee did meet. You have the minutes from their first meeting in your agenda packet for information. We're having another meeting next week. It's scheduled for an hour and a half. And Kurt Anderson on my staff was handed a banker's box full of labor reports yesterday. So he'll be going through and trying to find some commonalities and probably specifically looking at, the percentage of local labor that's been used overall with projects that are in process or completed. If there's differences between the under 5 million, over 5 million projects, and then taking a deeper dive in to look at if there's specific trades that are adequately represented or underrepresented, so we can start drawing some conclusions there. The committee is looking at, sort of seeing what the results are of all the data that we have created as a result of the existing policy. And so more updates on that. Ann Corman was appointed as the chair of that committee, so she'll be leading us through that process. Let's see, at the last IDA meeting, I think Martha had brought up in our discussion about the IDA now having ability to do grants of $10,000 or less for for-profit or not-for-profit entities, specifically related to purchases of PPE or any renovations as they relate to COVID. She had brought up, could we look at providing those kinds of grants to childcare centers? It's taken a little bit of time, but I actually have a conversation set up with Sue Del Hall of the Child Development Council next week to talk about that and see if that is feasible and how it might work with the childcare centers in Tompkins County. So more to come on that. The State Comptroller's Office did release the 2020 IDA and Public Authorities Report. Some of you may have seen it. It details all of the IDAs in the state and the number of projects and all the metrics that they look at the state level. This is all based on the information that we submit into PARIS, the Public Accountability Reporting Information System. It is 2018 project data. So, you've all seen that last year. They run a little bit behind, but overall we had 48 active projects valued at $766 million, I think. Property tax exemptions in the range of about $6 million, over 1,000 jobs created by those 48 projects. So if anyone's interested, I can send the full report and folks can see where we line up with other IDAs. But nothing out of the ordinary on that report. The state did extend our ability to hold meetings virtually through September 4th. So we're just waiting to see if that gets extended further. And we had talked here about a SWOT analysis for an accelerator project, some sort of cluster development. We did hold the SWOT last week and John Guttridge participated. I'm going to let John go ahead and give a little update on where that went.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, so we had actually, I have to say, Heather pulled together a really amazing group of people to participate in the SWOT analysis. There were folks from, a variety of different sectors. And we did, we made some progress in trying to think through what we might be able to put together, what sort of fits into, the needs that our marketplace has. And the direction that we came out of it with was really wanting to look at the idea of, leveraging, things that are coming out of like the McGovern Center and other kinds of Cornell research driven that were perhaps in the life sciences sector. And we also identified that there weren't really the right folks in the room to speak to that particular sector. So we were planning to essentially convene an additional meeting to try to get some more people in the room to talk about what the real opportunity might be and, what resources and infrastructure might support a cluster in that sector. So we plan to continue the conversation and hopefully put something together.
Yeah, and I
Martha?
think I had a little, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Martha, could you put your phone on mute?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. Go ahead, Heather.
And we're going to set up a small steering committee to guide that process with the folks from Orange County and Galileo Technologies that are leading us through the SWAT process. I think we're going to try and have a meeting next week. The steering committee, we wanted to keep it small. It's going to be John Guttridge, Ela Burbank, from the president of Encodema, and John Alexander, who's retired founder of the Seaboard Group. And I think that is my report for today.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Anne, did you have anything you wanted to add about the Labor Committee to this point?
Not really. Well, I guess just one thing, just to reiterate, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is that, I think I appreciate everybody who volunteered to be a member of this and all the work that they're doing. And because just thinking about COVID and our economic recovery, I think it's a good time to take a look at it. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, good. Let's see, we have meeting minutes from July 8th, 2020. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes? Laura moves and seconds. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, I'll make the rounds. Anne,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
John,
Oh, sorry, yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and it looks like we might have lost Martha. I vote yes. And we'll give Martha a chance to vote if she reappears. She probably went behind a mountain. That looks like we've worked our way through the agenda. Heather, do you have something else before we consider executive session?
We just missed the quarterly budget report.
Oh, that's right. That was in your, okay. Yeah, why don't you tell us about the quarterly budget report?
It's in your packet on page 34. This is through the end of second quarter. You can see our income from fees on projects that have closed. Our big expenses support to TCAD for administration of the IDA, the Development Corporation, and General Economic Development Services for Tompkins County. Our ending balance was $876,000.
Okay, any questions or comments on the quarterly budget report? John?
I guess I'm just curious with the, we've reached 59% of our budget on fees from projects. Do you expect that to shift drastically because of slowdowns related to COVID or anything else like that? Or do you think we're still relatively likely to hit our budget for the year?
I have outstanding to close the City Harbor project and 327 West Seneca Street. If City Harbor closes, we will come close to our budget projection. There are other projects on the docket in the fall that I think we anticipated a little bit earlier in the year, so those fees may come in next year. If they come through the IDA and they're approved, of course.
But there's no reason that we should be concerned because we have plenty of fund balance. It's not like anything's at risk. It's just timing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Laura.
Thank you. I just had a question about attorney fees. Are those fees for Russ? He has been doing some work for the agency. So I was just curious why that's at zero.
Generally, the applicants are responsible for attorney's fees. Our attorney doesn't charge us for his time to attend meetings and do regular, ordinary kinds of things. I think we had budgeted in there in case we wanted to review policies or had anything additional beyond the ordinary.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. His comments have always been so helpful. I just wanted to make sure that we were paying him if need be.
Well, I'm happy to send a bill if you'd like to pay it, but no, wait, to be honest with you, the technical policy review work I have done by a partner of mine out of our Albany office. And if there's something out of the ordinary, God forbid some litigation or something like that, I would make the board aware of that in advance of doing any work that would be billed directly to the IDA. So
Okay. Anything else on the first quarter, second quarter budget? All right. I believe we are at a point we could consider going into executive session if I get a motion. Laura moves,
Second.
John seconds. Thanks. All those in favor of going into executive session? Laura,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And I think we haven't had Martha rejoin us yet. I vote yes. So that's 6 yeses. I guess we call that an abstention. Well, actually not present. I don't know how we deal with that from a parliamentary standpoint, but we have enough votes. So I assume, Heather, you turn off the live stream?
Can you just state specifically for the record why you're going into executive session?
We're discussing a request from a development project where there has been the possibility of litigation.
Thank you.
Russ, does that qualify?
sorry, I was turning off my mute. Yes, and we're also likely to be discussing the financial information of a specific corporation.
Okay. Thanks.
Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream and stop the recording.